All right, welcome back to the session of Pellet Tech 101. Now I just got done replacing the rope gasket in this St. Croix door, and I wanted to show you how we replace the glass gasket. So the glass has a separate gasket that goes all the way around. Again, depending on the stove, make, and model, those will all be a little bit different. But generally we want to do the same thing. We want to take a look at, how that's fraying, how that's wearing. It's really important that we have a tight seal with no air gaps all the way around. Now this particular stove door is about 10-12 years old, and the way that I see it, it's definitely time to replace that glass gasket that's in there. Now on most stoves you're going to have clips like what you see here that are holding that glass in place. Now again, this one was old. This is off of probably a 10-12 year old stove. So when I first tried to bust these little bolts that hold the retainers in for the glass, I couldn't budge them. So I first just kind of soaked them down with some WD-40. I let that sit for about an hour. That really penetrated in there. 3 of them I was then able to get, and this particular door uses a 5/16. So I was able to get them with a wrench, 3 of them, but I had a 4th one that was really stubborn. It just wouldn't crack. So I had to grab a vice grip right here to be able to knock that loose. Important that you don't strip those out. So if it's giving you a little bit of difficulty, grab some different tools that can help you do the job. Once I have them loosened up, I just grab a 5/16 nut driver. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull these bolts out that hold these retainer clips into the glass. We're just going to do them one at a time, set them to the side. And again, there's different designs. It just depends on the make, the model. But you'll see some different designs on these retainer clips. Again, this particular one is out of a St. Croix Prescott. Just about every stove that's on the market will have a gasket between the glass and the door frame. So it is important that we're regularly inspecting those gaskets, especially in the pellet stove or a corn stove, and we can have some major issues with the efficiency of our fire and safety. So always important to be looking at our gaskets. Although they do last several seasons, we want to keep an eye on them and make sure that those are tight seals all the way around. All right, so that's the last retainer clip that's out. So at this point the glass is loose. So I am going to just gently get the glass pulled up here and off. And you can see that the adhesive is so old that it even wore off the glass right here. The gasket didn't even stick. Now most of the time the gasket is going to stay stuck right here to the glass. But this is definitely old and frail and time to replace. And again, the width of this is going to be a little different. Again, as you look at make and models. This particular one off of St. Croix, this is a 5-inch. This is kind of what our replacement looks like here. So we're just going to discard that off to the side. And what I'm going to do here, especially with the glass, because the new gasket does have, it's called what they call a PSA gasket. So we do have a strip on the back side that we're going to peel off, so we don't have to use additional adhesive. We'll peel that off and we're going to lay that all the way around the glass right here. But before I do that, I want to give a nice cleaning on the glass. I'm going to grab some cleaner. I'm going to do some cleaning. If I need to, I'm going to take a razor blade and I'm going to kind of break away any of the old residue from any of the old adhesive that was on there, just so I can ensure that we get a really nice stick or really nice seal when we're ready to put that new gasket in. I'll probably also just kind of brush off a little bit of the dirt and so forth that's on the door frame. So we'll be back in just a second with that. All right, we're back. So I've just kind of wiped off the glass a little bit, cleaned off the table a little bit, used my wire brush to just kind of clean out the inside of the door a little bit. I mean, since we have this all off, we might as well make sure that we're just kind of cleaning things up a bit. But I'm taking the side of the glass right here that had the gasket stuck to it, and I just have a pretty standard, straight razor blade right here, always moving it away from myself. But I am just getting as much of that old leftover adhesive off the glass as possible before I start laying the new gasket. With this one, there's not a lot on there, but again, it's just it's a good practice to do. We want a nice seal to that glass. Yeah, that side's pretty clean. we go. That's looking pretty good. I think we are ready to go ahead and apply the gasket. I'm going to move this door out of the way just so I can have this on a nice flat surface as we apply that. All right, we've got the glass laid down here, all cleaned off. We've got our new replacement gasket ready to go. We're going to start applying this to the glass. So I'm just going to start by peeling off a little bit of this adhesive backing. So we start. I took my razor blade and I cut off any little frays that were on the end of this gasket as I start, just so I have a nice clean end. And with a glass gasket like this, a lot of times what I like to do is I like to start with it at an edge. Where again, if you remember in the door gasket, we're kind of right in the middle. Glass gasket, I really like to start right at one of the edges of the glass. And we are just literally following the glass line on the side right here. So again, just using two hands, I'm gently pulling the backing right here as I'm just lining it up with my other finger right along that edge. Taking your time. Just applying a little bit of pressure with my other hand as I'm laying it down. Now as we get to the corner right here, that's where it can be a little bit tricky, as we want to round this corner. So essentially I'm going to hold one finger here so I can keep that stable while I start to make that turn. And so I'm going to hold my thumb down here so I can grab this peel off backing as I start that next edge on the bottom. You see, we can get a really nice 90-degree right there with that method. So again, same thing. I am just gently, I am not stretching this gasket. I am not bunching it. I'm making sure that it's lined up right by the edge of the glass. And just pulling off that backing as I go. Again, getting to that corner again, so we're going to get it pushed right to that corner. I'm going to use my thumb right here like this. Make sure that we have the backing peeled up a little bit. And we're going to make that 90-degree. Holding pressure on there so we get a nice seal. It's not overlapping, it's not bunching up. And then again, next side, we're just following that glass line. And again, if it gets crooked, you can peel it up and put it back down. But ideally, for the best stick, we want to try to get it as accurate as we can when we first apply it to the glass. Just like that, at that corner. Same thing, I'm going to hold pressure down with my thumb as we make that 90-degree turn. Just like that. Straighten that out. Again, just applying light pressure here. And again, we'll bring it right to this edge, right there. We don't want it to overlap, so I'm literally going to cut a clean line right where this gasket has met this other gasket right here. So I'm going to do a nice clean break line, maybe just a slight overlap to it, because the last thing I want is there to be a gap or a space. So again, the precision of how we make that final trim is important. I would suggest a very sharp razor blade, or you can use a pair of scissors to do this. Again, never hurts to have hand protection on. Always be careful, safety first. All right, and just like that, you met the lines. I'm going to grab a scissors. I'm going to cut off any of these additional frays right here before we lay that back into the door frame. All right, so I'm just trimming, again, some of these last little frays where those two ends came together. Just have a nice sharp scissors right here, making sure that we don't have any gaps where the two gaskets meet. It's just taking care of some of those little fray points right there. And that looks pretty good. So that is the application of the glass gasket. What we're going to do now is we're going to put the door back up on here and go through best practices as we put it back in the door frame. All right, so we have the door frame back down on the table, and again, I just used a dry paintbrush and a wire brush just to, bust away any debris right here, just to make sure that we have a nice contact with the glass of the door. Again, this one is old, 10, 12 years old, so I mean, it has its use there for sure. But again, just like to brush away anything that may create gaps, air leaks, anything like that before we go ahead and place this back down. And again, some glasses are curved, some glasses, there's a specific top point, bottom point. This particular one in the Prescott is just a rectangular piece of glass, so we don't necessarily have a top and a bottom. But we're just placing that in there. Again, we do have a little bit of space. I'm just kind of checking it all the way around, checking my gaps to where those retainers are going to hold it in. And there, looks like a pretty solid placement. So what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to grab these retainers, and this is a very important thing because as the stove heats up, things expand. And it's very important that we don't lock these retainers down tight. We want to have them snug, and we want to put them in a way, kind of like we put lug nuts on a car, where we're tightening each one on opposite sides a little bit at a time, just literally snugging the gasket down in place so it's not physically wiggling or moving, but by no means do we tighten these retainers all the way down or crank them in. So just going to first kind of start it with my fingers before I grab a nut driver. And I'm just going to thread this in a couple times. I'm going to grab the next one. And just a couple threads in so it's in. And the next one there. And the next one there. All right. So now that we have them all in, again, I'm not going to use a wrench. I'm not going to use a socket. I am just going to literally either use a nut driver like this, or I'm going to, these particular ones have a flathead slot on the top where I would use that. But this is a very gentle tighten down right here as we go. And so again, I'm going to do the top, and then I'm going to move over to the bottom. I'm just doing a couple threads at a time. I'm going to move over to the side, and just a light thread over there, and over to the other side, and a light thread over there. Again, just to the point where this glass isn't physically wiggling or moving in place. By no means do we have these retainer pieces locked down. This one could use just a little snug, just like that, and just a half a turn there, just like that. Everything is nice and tight all the way around. So you can see the door there. Now on the front side right here, it's very normal when you put a new glass gasket that you may see some of that gasket coming out from the door frame, which is completely fine. If you wanted to tuck it in there a little bit more, you could use like a light putty knife and just kind of push that to the point of those even lines all the way down. But that is the replacement of a glass gasket in your stove door. Thanks again for joining us for another session of Pellet Tech 101. Any questions, comments, concerns, advice, tips, tricks, just leave us a comment in the video below. We're always here, we're always happy to help, and we'll see you again on the next video.